Thank you for joining for the 6th annual World Psychedelics Day today. My name is Shannon Smadella, and I'm co-executive director of WPD 620 and the International Psychedelics Awareness Foundation, and I will be your host and guide for the session today. We want to acknowledge that we are joining from the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. And we also welcome you to let us know and to acknowledge which lands you are joining us from today in the chat. So feel free to go ahead and let us know where in the world and which lands you are joining us from. So, World Psychedelics Day, observed annually on June 20th, today, is a volunteer-run global movement dedicated to advancing awareness, research, and equitable access to psychedelic medicine, honoring the intersection of science, policy, traditional knowledge, and community action. So you can learn more about the movement at worldpsychedelicsday.org. I want to take a few seconds here to recognize our partners and sponsors. MAPS from day one has been a big partner of ours, our community sponsors, and all of our partners over the 6 years that have helped to make this day happen. So thank you to all of our partners, our sponsors, and to all of you who keep this movement alive and building. It is with you that we move towards UN recognition and beyond. So a couple of housekeeping items here before we get started. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A at the bottom of the screen, it should be. So feel free to do that because we will be having a Q&A session after the session today. And we are going to get started with a few introductions as well. So first of all, I would like to bring up one of our co-executive directors as well as the founder of World Psychedelics Day. His name is Mark Achbar. He is winner of 56 awards. Mark Achbar was the driving force behind the 2 top-grossing Canadian feature documentaries ever made. His collaboration with Peter Wintonek gave us Manufacturing Consent, Noam Chomsky and the Media, and with Joel Bakan and Jennifer Abbott, The Corporation. Seen globally in theaters and on TV, and widely reviewed and pirated, and finally made available on YouTube. So he is also an executive producer on over 15 feature documentaries. So I would like to welcome Mark Achbar, co-founder and co-executive director of World Psychedelics Day, to say a few words about World Psychedelics Day and its history.
Thanks, Shannon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Well, back in 2021, in the middle of the pandemic, it occurred to me that my friend Ria Mehta in Toronto created something called World Smoothie Day, and another friend, Patricia Sims, founded World Elephant Day. And so I thought if smoothies and elephants could have an official day, surely psychedelics deserved one too. So together with Sarah Butterfield and you, Shannon, Kathleen Maitland-Carter, and a team at Marigold, a PR company, we launched World Psychedelics Day on June 20th. The response exceeded anything that we could have imagined. More than 2,500 people registered. We hosted 15 panel discussions and welcomed 52 speakers from around the world. At a time when so many people felt isolated and disconnected, a global community really found each other, I think. And since then, World Psychedelics Day has continued to grow with events taking place across countries, both online and in person around the world. My hope today is simple, that each of you watching this will make this day your own, whether you're a researcher, a therapist, an artist, an advocate, patient, policymaker, or simply someone whose life has been touched by these medicines. I encourage you to use this day to tell your story with perhaps someone you've never shared it with before. Come out of the psychedelic closet and share your experiences. For me, one of the most important lessons psychedelics can offer is that healing and envisioning a better world is rarely something we do alone. And at their best, these experiences remind us that we are connected to one another, to the living world around us, and to responsibilities larger than ourselves. Thank you for being here today and for helping to build that culture of connection.
Thanks so much, Mark. So next, I'd like to bring up our other co-executive director and co-founder, Sarah Butterfield. Sarah is an artist, a writer, and co-founder of the International Psychedelics Awareness Foundation. She is also an artistic director and researcher for WPD 620, and she is currently attempting to write a literary novella about the erosion of trust. So welcome, Sarah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to World Psychedelics Day. I want to talk about hope, those little green shoots that manifest themselves when diplomatic grace, kindness, love, community start fermenting. And I think they are right now in a time when there's so many things that are causing anxiety and mental distress, be it genocide, corruption, the normalizing of lying, you name it, economic disparity. There are many, many things that seem to be tearing people apart right now. And the statistics are incontrovertible about the rising levels of suicide, PTSD, and depression and addiction amongst humans. It is a response to the nowness of now. And hope, I think, lies somewhere inside the promise of psychedelics, which is why I'm very interested in this project. You can, take pathways like therapy or pharmaceuticals, but you can also join a very a scientifically underpinned world and an indigenously wise world that has always pointed towards psychedelics as tools for consciousness, tools for repair, tools for enlightenment. And this is what interests me about this project. And it's interesting that now, as things become so complex amongst humans, pressure of numbers, collapse of truth, that psychedelics are beginning to hold a space as teachers of enlightenment and kindness. But you have to understand, after the immensely effective war on drugs, that now there are very, very important things to understand that are emerging out of psychedelics that are incredibly important for human healing. And WPD exists as an umbrella organization that brings everyone to the table who knows that as a kind of conscious project, there's promise and hope inside these substances that, used judiciously and with care, can help people whose brains are just frying with anxiety and the difficulty of survival. And I think they are wondrous things. And I encourage the UN to support this initiative, to look at it scientifically, therapeutically, and through indigenous wisdom. It's a very, very important tool for mind and healing. And that is my interest in this project. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So today, for the few minutes that I have right now, I would like to talk about mental health as a human right. So mental health is not secondary to health. It's not optional. It's not luxury. It is a part of human dignity. And the World Health Organization recognizes that every human being has the right to the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health. And that distinction really matters because when people are denied access to mental health care, trauma support, addiction treatment, or safe, evidence-informed options for healing, they're not only being failed by a health system, their dignity is compromised. This is also reflected in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDG 3, calls on the world to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages, and includes the promotion of mental health and well-being. But mental health reaches far beyond SDG 3. As we know, it's connected to poverty, education, gender equality, reduced inequalities, justice, and peace. And a person's mental health affects whether they can learn, work, parent, participate, belong, and live with dignity. So when we say mental health is a human right, we're also saying that sustainable development is not possible without mental health. And this is where science becomes essential. So across the field, psychedelic-assisted therapies are being studied through legitimate research pathways, from preclinical research to early-stage safety and tolerability studies, and of course, we know there are thousands of clinical trials going on evaluating therapeutic potential in areas such as PTSD, depression, addiction, and even end-of-life distress. So these treatments are not magic solutions. They're not appropriate for everyone, and they must be approached with care, evidence, ethics, regulation, and respect. But they are part of a growing scientific conversation about how we respond to profound psychological suffering, especially when existing systems and treatments are not enough. In Canada, this conversation is no longer theoretical. We are already having legal pathways for psilocybin access through clinical trials and the Special Access Program. And proposed legislation has recently brought physician-prescribed psilocybin-assisted therapy into the parliamentary conversation. So this matters because mental health as a human right must include treatment autonomy. So autonomy is often framed as the right to refuse care, but true autonomy must also include the right to access care. It must include informed consent, meaningful options, and the ability to make decisions from a place of support, not desperation. So this is especially important in Canada, where we have had deeply concerning reports about veterans seeking support instead of being exposed to conversations about medical assistance in dying. So whatever your position is on MAID, this raises a profound human rights question. Has someone truly been given a choice if they have not first been given access to care, trauma treatment, community support, and hope? So autonomy cannot mean offering people an exit while failing to offer them healing. If we're serious about mental health as a human right, then we must build systems where people have access to evidence-informed care, including emerging therapies when there are safe, regulated, and medically appropriate options. So we must ensure these treatments are developed with ethics, equity, science, cultural responsibility, and access at the center. The promise of psychedelic medicine is not only that it may offer new treatment options, the deeper promise is that it invites us to rethink what healing requires: dignity, safety, connection, compassion, and the freedom to participate in one's own care. And this is why World Psychedelics Day matters. We're asking people to sign the petition calling for the United Nations to recognize World Psychedelics Day, not because World Psychedelics Day can solve these issues, but because recognition creates visibility. It creates legitimacy. It creates space for global dialogue around science, ethics, access, human rights, and healing. And it takes traditional and ancient healing and makes it available and accessible. So to finish, UN recognized World Psychedelics Day would not be about promoting psychedelics without caution. It would be about creating an international platform to advance education, support responsible research, honor Indigenous and traditional knowledge systems, reduce stigma, and encourage policies rooted in safety, dignity, and human rights. So we ask you to sign the petition, we ask you to share it, and we ask you to help us move this conversation forward, because the goal is not simply access to new treatments. The goal is a future where healing is guided by science, protected by human rights, informed by tradition, and available with dignity. So I would now like to introduce to you one of our first guests for today, Mark Haden. And Mark Haden will be joining us through a moment in time, through a recorded video that he has given to us, as he was unable to be here live today. So Mark Haden, previously the executive director of MAPS Canada for 10 years. Mark is an adjunct professor at the University of BC School of Population and Public Health and has published on the issue of drug control policy and psychedelics. Mark also worked in the addictions field in counseling, supervisory, and management positions for over 29, I think it's almost 30 years. Mark has provided public education on drugs and drug policy for 30 years, and Mark works with the Health Officers Council of British Columbia on their position papers on the issue of a regulated market for all currently illegal drugs. He was awarded the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal for Drug Policy Reform work in 2013 and is currently VP of Business Development for Clearmind Medicine. So let me welcome Mark Haden today.
Today I'm going to talk about what the impact of all those mushroom stores and psychedelic stores have in Vancouver. And there is evidence to support, quite frankly, leaving them alone. So I want to explore the evidence. In fact, I have explored the evidence, and it's a paper that I wrote, and it's being published, and you can find it on my website, markhaden.com. And in the title is this academic buzzword. It's called naturalistic use. So naturalistic use is use of psychedelics outside of clinical research settings. So what does that mean? It means friends taking psychedelics sitting around a bonfire on the beach. It means ayahuasca ceremonies. It means underground therapists. It means couples taking them to bond more closely. So what happens when people take psychedelics in naturalistic contexts? In other words, recreational use. And the answer is generally good things happen. So there has been an explosion of research on this particular topic. And it started with a guy named Hendricks. And Hendricks went into the criminal justice database in the United States. Now, when you go to jail in the States, they, as they're walking you to your cell, they ask you to fill out some questionnaires. And one of the questions they ask you is, what drugs do you take? So he knew what drugs people in jail were taking, and he also knew about recidivism. That means going back to jail after you've been in jail. And then he compared drug use with recidivism. And so we in our society believe that what prevents recidivism is stable family, housing, and employment. And yes, Hendricks went into the database and noticed that, yes, stable housing, family, and employment do reduce the chance of people going back to jail. But then he found that people that take psychedelic drugs are more protected against recidivism than stable family, housing, and employment. Yes, people who took crack cocaine and opiate drugs had a greatly increased recidivism. They went back to jail quite quickly, but people who take psychedelics were protected against going back to jail. So Hendricks got excited. And what he did is he then went into the National Health Survey database, which is a huge survey of people's health in the United States. And he plotted and tracked psychedelic use compared to many different health parameters. And what he found is that people who took psychedelics were less suicidal and generally had better mental health than people who didn't. So those two studies were published and produced an explosion of research. And we found, I think it was 104, something like that, studies looking at naturalistic use from many different perspectives. Many people analyzed many different databases, including one in Vancouver. In fact, a few of them in British Columbia, but one in Vancouver was a woman named Elena Argento who looked at downtown East Side women, often sex workers and addicted to many drugs. And what they found is those women were healthier when they took psychedelics. So many different databases, many different researchers, many different perspectives. And what they generally found, summarizing all of that research, was surprisingly, overwhelmingly positive. So specifically, researchers found reductions in depression, anxiety, PTSD, intimate partner violence, suicidality, enhancements of emotional well-being, psychological flexibility, empathy, and social connectedness, connections with other people. There were also improvements in things like spirituality and nature connectedness and greater personal insight. Addiction rates went down. There were low rates of substance dependence, and that included alcohol, tobacco, opiates, and stimulants. And it wasn't just psychological health that improved. It was also better overall health. People who use psychedelics reported lower rates of obesity, hypertension, heart disease, and interestingly, diabetes. They also had lower sick leave. They went to work more. And the studies looked at some marginalized populations, some older adults, and those with eating disorders or chronic pain, and they all showed improved outcomes. We, being researchers of integrity, also had to report on adverse events. And what we noticed is, yes, some people took psychedelics in recreational contexts and had adverse events. But what was interesting is the adverse events were somewhat predictable and manageable. So what were they? They were young people who didn't have experience. They were people generally who weren't experienced. They were people who had specific mental health conditions, and they were poor set and setting. So let's look at those. So young people could be either screened out or trained if we were selling these through a regulated market. We could ask people to get some basic training before they purchased it that would teach them about how to take psychedelics in skillful ways with set and setting controls, set being the expectation and setting being the environment you take it in. And we could ask people to screen themselves for certain mental health conditions. And specifically, there are some personality disorders who don't do well with psychedelics. There are people who are vulnerable to mania that don't do well with psychedelics. And then there are people who are vulnerable to psychosis, are generally people who shouldn't use psychedelics. So those are all issues that people can be trained to manage more skillfully. So in conclusion, what we saw is people who took psychedelics generally in our society were healthier. They were healthier with mental health, they were healthier with physical health, and they were healthier with their social connections. And the problems that we saw, we being a society that is skillful and wise, we could train people to minimize the adverse events. So the bottom line, the message to the Vancouver police and other police departments and city halls, when mushroom stores start popping up in your city, basically just leave them alone. That's the least worst you could do. But we could do it more skillfully. We could actually regulate and control the sale of psychedelics. We could provide training for people. We could provide screening. We could provide information for people as they purchase them to maximize the benefits of psychedelic drugs. So the bottom line is, should police bust mushroom stores? The short answer is no. They tend to be a benefit to our society.
Thank you, Mark. Haden. So part of our run-of show today includes some special guests. And before we bring these special guests on, I'm going to bring back Mark Achbar to talk a little bit about his work in film and documentary filmmaking, because a lot of the way that messages are spread is through documentaries and through films. So Mark, I'll welcome you back to say a few words before we introduce our next special guest. Oh, we still have you muted.
There we are.
Perfect.
Thanks, Shannon. Well, over the years, I've had the privilege to support and later executive produce a number of feature documentaries exploring the promise and complexity of psychedelic medicines. The first one was called The Jungle Prescription. It was on CBC in the Nature of Things, which followed Dr. Gabor Mate's work with ayahuasca. Then Oliver Huckenhall made Neurons to Nirvana, which explored the science and history of psychedelic therapy. Dosed 2, The Trip of a Lifetime. In that film, a woman with stage 4 cancer had an experience with psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy, which profoundly transformed her life, her relationship to death and healing. And today she remains in remission. Currently in production is a film called Chemical Consent, which is a film that examines the shadow side of psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy, which is the abuse of power by some therapists while their clients are under the influence of psychedelic drugs. It's a difficult but necessary conversation, and one we hope to bring to psychedelic science if we get the money to finish the film in Denver next year. But a couple of years ago, two young filmmakers, fresh out of film school, approached me with a film they'd started shooting about Dana Larson here in Vancouver. He owns 3 stores which openly sell clean, tested psychedelics. Quite a range of them, with instruction sheets to anyone over 18. And he also funds a testing site where they can get their drugs tested for fentanyl or any other contaminants for free in about 5 minutes anonymously. So for me, that was an obvious yes. And I'm happy that the filmmakers are here with us today and have some clips. I think a trailer and a scene that this hasn't been broadcast before. It's just starting out in its trajectory in film festivals. It played in Hot Docs in Toronto, and here they are.
Wonderful. I have some introductions here for our special guests today. So we have Alisher Balfanbayev. You'll have to let me know if I said that properly. He is a Canadian director, producer, and cinematographer born in Almaty, Kazakhstan, to a family of cinephiles. Alisher nurtured a deep appreciation for a wide range of cinema from an early age. He spent his formative years crafting short films with friends, a hobby that grew more pronounced after relocating to Vancouver in his teens. Driven by his passion, he ventured to Los Angeles to study film and television production at the USC School of Cinematic Arts. A standout achievement from this period was his thesis film, The Chess Match, which earned accolades at various international festivals. Searching for Drug Peace is Alisher's first documentary and marks his feature directorial debut. We also have Max with us as well. Max is an American-Canadian producer born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. He graduated from USC School of Cinematic Arts, where he earned the unique distinction of being the only undergraduate student selected to produce a graduate thesis film. After working in various roles on the agency, development, and production sides of the industry, including at companies such as Mythology Entertainment, Link Entertainment, and 20th Century, he joined forces with his fellow SCA alum, Alisher, to produce his debut feature documentary, Searching for Drug Peace. So being from Detroit, Max is very passionate about bringing overlooked stories to wider attention, creating content with purpose, clarity, and care. And today, with Alisher and Max, we also have a very special guest who needs no introduction, Mr. Dana Larson, who is one of the focal points of Alisher and Max's documentary. So welcome, Alisher, Max, and Dana. And we can't wait to get into this conversation today.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. I'd like to just go ahead and start with our trailer before we get into talking a little bit more about the film.
I profit because of prohibition, and I want to try to end prohibition with those profits. I run the mushroom dispensary up there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Planet Earth has the best drugs in the universe.
That's probably, like, definitely in the solar system.
Drug trafficking is illegal, but a retail store has already opened in Vancouver, run by Dana Larson, and they're doing it in plain sight.
Oh yeah, you're old enough for me to sell you illegal drugs.
A lot of my mission in life, my main mission in life, has been to undo the harms of centuries of prohibition.
What do you sell?
Cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine.
People around me dropped like flies.
The idea that addiction is some kind of neat, careful thing is completely false.
It's like anarchy. Just do whatever you want. No law and order.
You get what you settle for in everything, but in drug peace especially, you end up with the regulations that you fought for.
Well, it's easy to forget that there's a huge organization of highly trained, armed men and women who are devoted to, like, stopping us. What a weird life.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having us, guys. Shannon, Sarah, Mark. Really excited to be here to talk a little bit about the film. So this is, like Shannon mentioned, this is our first documentary, our first feature film. Max and I met in film school down in LA and, worked on a lot of projects together. And it's a privilege to continue to be able to create films beyond that. This film took 3.5 years to make. We started it in January of 2023, right when the decriminalization project was being rolled out in British Columbia. And since then, the film has evolved in what subject matter is and, like, what really our focus is. As I'm sure Mark knows with his many experiences in making documentaries, a lot of the times you don't really know where it's going to end up, or most of the time you don't know where the story is going to end up. And yeah, it's been a really rewarding experience to make this. We've learned so much about the subject, and we had a lot of some knowledge, I think, coming into the project. The issue of drug reform has been a very important one to me for years before we started to make this. And obviously, being in Vancouver, you can see the effects of the toxic drug supply crisis, which really just goes beyond Vancouver. And we were down in California for film school. There were people that we knew that passed away from accidental overdose. And yeah, it's really a worldwide issue. And we just hope that our film can add to the conversation and allow people to maybe connect, even for people that are on different sides of the argument around, the discourse around the war on drugs and the toxic drug supply crisis and psychedelics and mental health. We hope that this film can bring people together and allow them to talk. And yeah, we recently premiered in Toronto at Hot Docs, and the response that we got from audiences and people that we talked to, people that are in the community that work in harm reduction, people that were ex-users, that the film is important, and as a filmmaker, that is really heartwarming to hear. And yeah, I'd like to also share a scene. It's one of our opening scenes in the film. It introduces the world a little bit and introduces Dana's store and our main characters. And here we go with that. Yeah, so just a little bit of a taste of the film. The film goes later goes into the cost of running such an operation, which is very much unique to Vancouver. I don't know from the audience members who is from Vancouver and who is not, and who's had the ability to go to Dana's store. But for us, stepping into it for the first time was, a very crazy experience. It's kind of like you're going into a bit of maybe a time capsule that goes a little bit earlier into the past of when things were not so controlled and criminalized and oppressed, or it's like stepping into the future of like what the future may be. Yeah, and you know, I would like to allow Dana to speak a little bit about his experience of, what it takes to, run such a store, and maybe talk a little bit about his experience in making this film with us. Whatever Dana wants to talk about. I think he is here. Here we go. Hi, Dana.
Hello.
Hello, hello. Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about maybe your background and the store and kind of how that came to be? And it's been about like 5 years now since you opened the medicinal mushroom dispensary originally, if I'm correct. If you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we opened up in early 2020, and our menu's grown quite a bit since when we opened. We didn't have the LSD or the DMT or a lot of other products when we first started. We just had the mushroom. We also sell kratom as well, which is a whole different conversation, but something also worthy of talking about. But for me, it really comes out of my experience with cannabis dispensaries. We opened Vancouver's third cannabis dispensary back in 2008, and we were kind of the vanguard. After us, a lot of other dispensaries opened. We taught people how to open their own cannabis shops, and for me, I mean, I created a lot of my own competition, but that's what we wanted. We wanted this movement to grow and for there to be lots of shops, not only in Vancouver but all across Canada. And I think we succeeded remarkably with that campaign. And as cannabis was moving towards legalization, I vote for me. It's always been more than just cannabis. I've always felt I'm committed to ending the whole war on drugs. And after cannabis, the next step was psychedelics. So we opened the psychedelic dispensary in the same way. I think we've inspired others to follow our example. There's around 24 or so shops in Vancouver, and there's some in Toronto and a scattering of other ones across the country as well. But Vancouver is the nexus or the locus, the focus point for these kind of shops. And I think it's been transformational. And for me, my goal is to change the laws and to help bring Canada into an era of psychedelic legalization. And I think that with cannabis, one of the key ingredients to that process was there being hundreds and hundreds of shops across the country openly selling cannabis before legalization happened. I think that wasn't the only factor, but it was a key factor in getting to legalization, the normalization of selling cannabis in storefronts. And I think we're going to see the same thing with psychedelics. It's going to take quite a few years. I think we're at least a decade away from the law actually changing, but what we're in the middle of is a big social change. The normalization of these kind of shops, the normalization of psychedelics, not only the strong, trip psychedelic doses, but also microdosing, which I think is becoming incredibly popular among people, many of whom have no desire to take a stronger trip. And I think that the stronger trips are very valuable and useful for people, but I've also seen incredible transformations happen in people's lives coming from sub-psychedelic dosages, from very, very small dosages, just taking a tenth of a gram or so of mushrooms a couple of times a week can be really transformational over people's mental health and their state of being. And so I'm very proud of the work we do at our shop. It's wonderful to see it in this documentary, this kind of snapshot in time of what we have been doing, what we are going to be doing. And it's a great movie, and I'm honored to be part of it. And just this movement in general, I think, is something that is going to have a big influence here in Vancouver and across Canada and ultimately around the world. Cannabis legalization in Canada, I think, has inspired other people in other countries to want to do the same thing where they live and to show that it is possible to happen. And I think we're going to be the same kind of leader in psychedelics in Canada as well. And I'm happy to be part of the vanguard of that movement.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, if anyone had any questions for Dana or for Max, we'd love to share more.
There's also a Q&A at the bottom of the screen. So if you want to type your questions in there, we can relay them on. And Mark and Sarah, not to put you on the spot, but just seeing if you have any questions that you'd like to ask for Dana or Alisher or Max. Well, we have them here today as well. Oh, Sarah, we have you muted still. Let's see here. Oh, I think she's trying.
Yeah, my question is really, are you optimistic?
Is that for me? Am I optimistic?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have to be in my kind of line of work, right? I mean, if I was pessimistic, I wouldn't take the risks I do and push for the change that I have been. I think you got to be realistic. When cannabis legalization came about, a lot of us in the cannabis movement were disappointed with how it played out and how it seemed to corporatize cannabis rather than really focusing on the benefits. Cannabis is still very much more stigmatized than other things. Certainly, it's more stigmatized than alcohol, despite being legal for several years now. But I'm very optimistic. I think that the drug war that's been going on for the last century is really kind of an abnormal and aberrant kind of a thing. And I think that what's normal is for these substances to be legal and regulated and available. And our movement is to kind of return to the normalcy of what really should have been the policy all along. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I think these things take a lot of time. I think that you have to be satisfied with changes that don't fully give you everything you want at the once. But I am optimistic that I'm going to see psychedelics legalized in Canada in my lifetime for adults to buy over the counter like they can with cannabis. And I'm optimistic that this whole failed war on drugs, I'm not sure I'm going to see the end of the war on drugs in my lifetime, but I'm hoping I'm seeing the beginning of the end of the war on drugs in my lifetime and dismantling these terrible policies that cause so much harm in Canada and all around the world.
There's one last question. Is Trump's decriminalization of ketamine one of the more useful things he's actually done?
Has that actually happened? I know he issued an executive order on, I think, ibogaine.
I thought it was on ketamine. Okay, yeah.
It might have been on that as well. I'm not totally sure on that. We'll see how much force that has. I'm obviously not a very big Trump fan, but I mean, some good policies can come out of what's otherwise a terrible administration. But I'm not sure how that's going to play out. Some of those executive orders seem to go further than others, and some seem to be very theatrical and not have a lot of practical impact. But if that happens, I would applaud it and support it. We'll see how it plays out. But I think that I'm focused more on Canada and what we're doing here than I am on the U.S. Although certainly, I think it was American decriminalization in many states and legalization in many states that allowed Canada to legalize cannabis. I'm not sure we would have done it if many American states hadn't done it first. And so in the same way, Canada, we're an independent country still for now. But what happens in the U.S. has big influence on us here. And any changes in the U.S. that are positive, whether they're only theatrical or whether they really make a real difference, they benefit us here in Canada by moving the window and giving us more opportunity to make changes here.
Does Carney have your ear?
No, I don't think so. I don't think this is a priority for him. I've never met him or talked to him. I did talk to Trudeau a few times, interacted with him, and I think that for Trudeau, legalizing cannabis was an important issue that he spent some political capital on and made a choice to prioritize this and to make it happen, to keep his promise that he made when he was running for election. I think right now, federally, the issue of psychedelics is not a big priority. Everyone's focused on Trump and on other issues that are going on and wars and things like that. I think our best hope for change in Canada over the next few years will be court decisions mainly, and court decisions that push Health Canada and other departments to implement these kind of things. But I think our best bet is probably going to be in the courts for the next 2 years. That's where many Canadians have gotten psychedelic access or psilocybin access. It's come from the government, but it's come out of court decisions that have forced the government to make that available. So I would focus more on the courts and on our civil disobedience campaign right now. There's a conservative bill, it's a conservative MP has brought forward a private member's bill to allow psilocybin to be prescribed. And that's not going to pass, but it's also good this is moving forward. It's good the Conservatives are bringing it forward. That's an unusual direction, to have it come from. But I think those kind of things are positive too. And all these incremental changes can help lead up to the normalization. And then ultimately you get a change in legislation. But I think that's still, at least probably 5 to 10 years away in Canada to see an actual change in the law happening. But we're going to see a lot more shops opening and a lot more positive court decisions and a lot more normalization as part of that process.
Just can I interject just a point of fact? Trump signed an executive order to accelerate medical research and expand patient access to psychedelic drugs like ibogaine and psilocybin. And the directive instructs the FDA to expedite reviews of the breakthrough psychedelic therapies and dedicates $50 million of federal matching funds for state-level research and paves the way for eligible patients to access experimental drugs. That's from our friends at Google.
Dana, the thing with making this film is a lot of stuff was left on the cutting room floor, and it very much focuses on the present, on what we filmed over 3 years. But Dana, you actually ran an ibogaine treatment center, or were involved with an ibogaine treatment center in was it the early 2000s or somewhere around there?
Yeah, I didn't run that myself. That was a project that Mark Emery funded, a guy I used to work with quite a bit and who I was very close to. But I'm also just going to put a disclaimer out there that I do not support any of Mark's current politics at all. If you look up what he's saying now, don't tie me in with that. But he did a lot of good work for cannabis and for drug legalization at the time. And Mark ran an ibogaine clinic on the Sunshine Coast. And I definitely saw people have dramatic changes. Not every person. It was mostly for people who are challenges with harder drugs and with opiates. And not every person who went through that program became totally stopped using entirely, but they all saw a dramatic reduction in use. They all saw they all reported like positive life changes and positive things to come out of it. And I think all psychedelics kind of have that sort of anti-addictive kind of property to them, and that they allow people to reevaluate their lives and to make different choices and to break bad habits and habitual patterns that can be destructive. I wouldn't say that all psychedelics help all people all the time, but I would say that I have seen a lot of really transformational things happen with people from using psychedelics in the right way, and not always in like a therapeutic setting necessarily, but that definitely helps, I think. But for me, I think the psychedelic experience is a very internal one. And so I think it's good to have somebody to help you talk afterwards about what you've been through and to kind of untangle and go through what you've learned. But the actual experience is something that it's internal when you're doing it. I don't think you really need someone there to sort of help you and hold your hand sometimes, but it's not something while you're tripping, you need someone talking to you or getting into you. It's a process that happens internally from these substances.
I want to encourage people to check out Waves and War, a documentary on Netflix about ibogaine and its power to help people with post-traumatic stress disorder. It's an incredible documentary. A bunch of Navy SEALs go through an ibogaine experience and come out the other end transformed and relieved of their trauma in many ways. It's really well made. Waves and War, it's called, on Netflix.
But it was that film that Joe Rogan, the Trump spoke into his ear and said, you've got to watch Waves and War. And it was as a result of that film that he signed this possible executive order to release, to release ibogaine and ketamine and other treatments for returning veterans.
Yes.
Whose suicide rate is higher than the men killed in war, and they've got to deal with it. And so Trump took it on. But it was that film that influenced his policy. Anyway. it's sort of interesting how things come to pass.
Mm-hmm.
Shannon, you there?
I'm here. Any other questions for Alisher, Max, or Dana? And perhaps you could let us know how everyone can follow the film and follow what you both are doing as well.
Yeah, that would be good.
Max, Mr. Producer.
Yeah, I mean, we right now are, as Mark mentioned, just in the middle of our festival circuit. So definitely keep an eye out because we are applying to festivals all over the country and the world. So, no matter what corner you're in, we might be in your neighborhood. We'll definitely be trying to, have a screening in Vancouver at some point too. So if you're local to Vancouver, keep your eye out for that. Maybe sometime in the fall, we're going to figure that out as well. But until then, we have our website, searchingfordrugpeace.com, as well as there you're going to have links to all of our relevant media and stuff like that, socials, any articles that have been written about the film. And yeah, that's a great place to, check for updates and stuff like that.
Follow us on Instagram, searching for Drug Piece as well. You can follow our production company, Divide Attention Creative, to see what else we will be cooking up in the near future. And yeah.
Also, Dana, do you want to plug up any of your socials, anything like that?
I'm banned from most social media. Actually, I got kicked off of Facebook. I've been kicked off of Twitter, and so I'm over on Blue Sky. You can, I don't know if Dana, whatever, just Google my, or look at my name on Blue Sky. You'll find me there. But otherwise, I'm too dangerous to be allowed on most social media. I just post an article on Facebook about my own work. But if I'm posting stories about myself, I guess they don't like that. You get in trouble. But my shop's at mushroomdispensary.com. Our website's about to undergo a pretty big renovation there. I'm also at danalarson.com if you want to see what I'm doing. But really, come into Vancouver and come by our shops and say hi. I'm usually there on Hastings and love to meet people that come on by and show them around.
Yeah, and it was really seriously such a pleasure to show a bit of the film, a bit about Dana, of everything like that with everyone here. Like Alisher was saying, it was a really fantastic experience making it. When I was watching the footage with you all, it was definitely like fond memories of, thinking about all the times with Dana, Cindy, and the rest of them. It was a fantastic experience. So yeah, really happy we got to share it with you all. And thank you, Mark, Sarah, Shannon, everybody as well for, having us and listening.
Also, quick special shout out to Mark, as a as an emerging filmmaker, having someone with such a vast experience in making documentary films to be by your side and provide moral support and provide creative support and notes, and very invaluable. So thank you so much, Mark.
And he's just an awesome guy in general, just great person. So that helps too.
I was going to say I was going to thank Dana for keeping up the good work on, because he's on the front lines of this thing. He's thank you, Dana, for the work that you're doing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, I want to thank everyone for being here today. And if anyone in the audience has any questions that they weren't able to ask today, shoot us an email. For anyone watching the recording, because this will be up shortly on the website. Again, just shoot us an email. Let us know if you have any questions. Follow our guests today at their websites. And yeah, let's keep the movement going forward. I have one final video to show today, but before I do that, does anyone have any final words of inspiration or hope or notes on thoughts on our mission to have World Psychedelics Day recognized by the UN?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely, like Alisher was saying, like our film definitely touches, on stuff about, psychedelics and mental health and treatment. It's a problem you can see, visibly in many different communities. And, it's very important to have these conversations. So, we're happy that we were able to do something to further the conversation. And World Psychedelics Day is an annual, gathering to, continue the conversation, forward the conversation. And so it's really a great thing, you know, that you guys are doing. So I think it's amazing.
I'm thinking we should put on an event in Vancouver next year. June 20th is on a Sunday. And, you know, we used to do some pretty big 420 festivals. Maybe we could organize a June 20th Psychedelics Day outdoor park event in Vancouver next year. I'm going to be thinking about that and trying to make that happen.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes. That's great, Dana. That's what we want people to do, is to embrace the day, make it your own, do something with it. Thank you.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
I have one video to show here. And then after that, if anyone has anything else to say or not, we'll close off the day. So just sharing this here.
Silent stage for a world finally starting to understand. This isn't the spectacle, the trend, or the hype of the day. It's a shift in the light, a storm finally finding its way. A turning from the fear toward a clearer vision. A collective decision to listen. We're learning again. What was always woven in the fabric, that healing isn't a gate, it's a path through the static. One hand holds the laboratory, refined, tested, and precise. The other holds the ancient ground where the wisdom has no price. Indigenous knowledge and frontier science in a slow conversation, asking the same question across every generation. How do we suffer less and come back to our center? How do we unlock the doors we were too afraid to enter? Because these medicines, approached with respect and support, they aren't just a theory or a clinical report. They are lives redirected, given back to the light, and we have to say it clearly. Mental health is a human right, not a lifestyle glitch or a character flaw, not a privilege for some hidden behind the law. It's the hope for the trauma, the end of the silence, a gentle persistence against a quiet defiance. This shift began with thoughtful intent, built in the shade by researchers and the therapists who weren't afraid, challenging prohibition, not with anger, but with care. And now, it's a moment we all have to share. Add your voice to the movement, sign the petition, help us carry the weight of this shared mission. Small actions, real impact, moving forward as one. Just visit wpd620.org and see what's begun. June 20th. Don't look away. Look within.
That's so great. Well done, Sarah. Sarah and Sean Osborne put that together.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I want to thank again our special guests for taking time out of their days to come and join us. Thank you to our audience who's joined us as well. And thank you to everyone who is showing up to watch the recording. And thank you to all of the partners, the sponsors, everyone who has supported us over these past 6 years. And also thank you to those who will join us in the future as well. So before you leave today, sign the petition. It's not too late to hold your event now. It's not too late to start planning for next year. And go ahead and post on socials, tag us, hashtag us, World Psychedelics Day, World Psychedelics Day 620, WPD 620. And, you know, if you have the means, WPD is completely volunteer run and internally funded. So if you have the means and you want to support the mission, we're always grateful for that as well. So go and sign that petition, share it with everyone you know, and enjoy World Psychedelics Day, June 20th. So thank you so much for joining us.
Bravo.
That's so